Oh, and there. No. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hello.
Hello. We are just about to get started. All right. So we meet today on settled indigenous land, which is the traditional territory of the Chinookan peoples of the Wasco, Wishram, Warm Springs, and Grand Rock tribes. Let us honor this land and its traditional native stewards, past, present, and future, and strive today to embody a commitment to cultural equity and reconciliation, ecological conservation, and sustainability. I hereby call this first meeting of the Hood River County Transportation District Budget Committee to order at 5:03 p.m. Tia, can you go ahead and take roll call?
Yes.
Greg?
Here.
Tamara?
Here.
Matt?
Here.
Cindy?
Here.
Leanne?
Here.
Jeremy?
Here.
And Bo. He is the only one that's missing today. He let me know he couldn't join. Thank you. All right. So the first piece on our agenda is election of the Budget Committee Chair. Thank you for coming today. What we're gonna do is at this time, if anybody would like to make a nomination for a budget chair, they will be the person that will run the meeting. And we provide nice little cheat sheets for them all.
On your experience, I don't know. I failed you guys miserably last year, so I would happily hand over the reins to somebody else.
Tamara, are you interested at all?
Well, I'm wondering if some of our guests would be more interested other than Jeremy.
I'm not interested.
And I'd like to sit through it once before
Okay.
I do anything.
Sounds good.
I can do it again, and I will happily with prodding make sure I attend all meetings this year.
No,
Hey,
yeah, that's
Let's nominate him.
All right. So I hear a motion for Jeremy as the budget chair. Do I hear a second? Or
second.
did I hear a motion? Was that
Yeah,
a
you did. I
okay.
motioned.
All right, great. Tamara, is that a second?
Yes.
All right. All in favor?
Hi.
Hi.
Aye.
All right. I am going to send you over an email with our little cheat sheet.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy.
Thank you.
But while I do that, give me 2 shakes of a leg.
Gardening all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same here, and I'm sorely behind. Yeah. Because the weeds, but the weeds are coming up pretty easy because the ground's still wet.
And while we're in a little bit of a lull here, Amy, I do have to apologize. I'm actually at another conference that I'm a board member on. Pacific Northwest Ski Area Association, and I do have to
Oh,
actually speak at a thing that's going on now, but I will move mobile. And have my headset in after about a half hour. I don't think I'm on until about 5:45 or so.
Okay.
If I got
Sounds
to chime in and vote, I will.
All right, sounds good. And really today is just to hear the budget message and to ask questions on the budget. And then to deliberate on any different questions or any items in the budget that the budget committee would like to discuss. And then the second meeting, we will go over any changes that might have been requested, as well as allow for public comment. And then final recommendations to the board.
okay. Can I say something before we jump in?
Sure.
I just want to go on record by saying this is one of the best and clearest budget messages I've read.
Yay.
It
I would
really is.
second that.
It's really clear. And I wanted to say also, I'm so proud of the board for adopting your coordinated transportation plan because it allows you to justify so many of your expenses. So I felt very good about what you presented.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Glad to hear that.
Now we can get into the details, right?
Yeah. It's time to tear it apart.
Amy, you waiting for me to do the next one?
Yes, please. Oh,
Froze.
are you frozen?
He's really good at staying still.
Okay, I think what I'll do, is I'm just gonna move us to the next step is me reading the budget
Okay.
message. And then hopefully he'll come back and then I'll let him take over after I'm done reading the message.
Maybe freeze.
Do you think he's
Alright.
faking it to get out of this? And
Yeah.
I vote yay.
A lot of dedication. Okay, cool. So, the purpose of the budget. So, and I do apologize, this is gonna be a lot of me reading. And, if you would like, we can go ahead and answer or ask questions at the end of each section, or I can just read through it all and you guys can ask questions after that. Is there any preference
At the end,
At the end.
at the end? Okay.
yeah.
All right. So in compliance with the state of Oregon local budget law, the 2024-2025 budget beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025 is submitted to the Budget Committee for approval. As prepared and submitted, the annual budget is intended to serve as a financial plan for the board's goals for the coming fiscal year. To that end, the budget should outline the forecasted expenditure requirements to meet these goals and the proposed means for financing those requirements. Provide a financial overview of the use and deployment of personnel, materials and services, and capital for administrative and operating expenditures during the fiscal year. Offer guidance to the board and district on overall operational priorities and expenditures. Accomplishments of fiscal year 2024. During fiscal year 24, the district made significant movement with board goals to enhance local services, maintain and expand access to residents and visitors in other gorge communities and the Portland metropolitan area, and complete the Hood River County Coordinated Transportation Plan process. Key outcomes included the finalization of the Hood River County Coordinated Transportation Plan was accomplished and adopted by the Board of Directors at the past board meeting. The significant community engagement that was done as part of the Transit Master Plan update in 2023 was mostly used to inform this plan. There was some additional outreach as well. For agency Gorge Transit Pass is in its third year. Gorge TransLink providers have made significant headway in aligning schedules to improve user experience and consistency. We are actually starting our new schedule on Saturday, where you're going to see a lot shorter transfer times between the CAT and the other provider services when trying to go throughout the gorge. So that's really exciting. The pass is now good for 365 days rather than a calendar year, which is also exciting, and we have seen improvement in the sales and more steady sales throughout the year. We have contracted with Skamania County, City of Stevenson, and the U.S. Forest Service to provide the Dog Mountain Shuttle for the 4th year. The district was awarded funding through, let's see. The district was awarded funding through the Washington State Department of Transportation Consolidated Grants Program for a portion of this program for the fiscal year 23 to 25 biennium. Provided the Gorge to Mountain Service in-house for the 3rd year, ridership increased from the fiscal year 23 season from 7,190 to 8,722 in fiscal year 24, which is exciting because it wasn't necessarily the most exciting year on the mountain. This is, so the district offered transit service that accommodated night skiing Wednesday through Saturday, which seemed to be very popular, and staff worked with the Hood River Valley High School team for the 2nd year in a row to ensure equitable access to the mountain for team members. Partnered with the City of Hood River on the Downtown Employee Pass Program for the 3rd year, received funding for 2 new Columbia Gorge Express vehicles, applied for funding for 2 additional new 35 to 40-foot vehicles that can be used on seasonal services and accommodate recreational gear, and a low-floor trolley. Worked with the Forest Service, ODOT, and other partners to ensure the success of the Multnomah Falls I-84 permit program and continuation of the program in summer of 2024. We were awarded the FTA Lower No Emission Bus Program funds for over $6 million in grant funding to purchase electric vehicles, facility modification, and expansion. Ridership overall is trending to increase by 5% from fiscal year 23. It should be noted that the district did remove several services, so the Hood River Connect, Cascade Locks, and the Dalles this fiscal year due to low ridership and/or streamlining of operations. Gorge Transit Connect, our low-income fare program, has expanded to new partner organizations. We have created a district-held LGIP account, which was more difficult than you would think it should be, and transitioned one of the 2 dispatcher roles into an administrative assistant role to assist the office manager and the executive director with administrative duties. So for our overall economic outlook, it is good. The COVID-19 pandemic impact has ceased and the staff has seen a significant increase in ridership over previous years. However, it does seem to be stabilizing, which is what we are expecting. CAT received over 1.5 million from federal COVID-related funding, CARES Act, CRISA in fiscal year 2020 through fiscal year 2024. CAT was awarded 1 additional allocation of CARES Act funding this year. No additional CARES Act allocations will be made. These funds have helped to maintain stability by addressing increased operational costs, fuel, vehicle expenses, and personnel wages and taxes due to inflation and other economic factors. The district expects to receive the full allotment of STIF funds, STIF formula payroll tax funds in the current 23-25 biennium, even though the funds have fluctuated on a quarter-to-quarter basis. Available federal 5311 formula funds have increased dramatically due to a recalibration in the formula, which represents the growth of the district. This allowed the district to include 2 new Columbia Gorge Express vehicles in the fiscal year 24 budget. However, they have not yet been delivered and are expected to arrive in early fiscal year 25. Payment is due upon delivery and expenses will then be reimbursed. If awarded, recently applied for state and federal funds, the district will have funding available to purchase 2 new seasonal 35 to 40 foot vehicles with space for recreational gear, a trolley, a weekend dispatcher, and add weekend dial ride services. These have all been added to the fiscal year 25 budget. So board goals for fiscal year 2025. The board has outlined the following goals: maintain current service levels for year-round services, Gorge to Mount Express, Dog Mountain Shuttle, Summer White Salmon, and expanded summer Columbia Gorge Express service. Expand dial-a-ride service area and transition the Upper Valley deviated fixed route into a fixed route dependent on funding. Continue implementation of our transit master plan update that was done in 2023. Continue and grow the multi-provider Gorge Transit Pass program and support the regional transit strategy as we work towards improved connectivity throughout the Gorge. Ongoing training for staff and human resources, leadership, and overall transit operations. We continue to focus on improved driver training and programs. Initiate facility expansion and modifications to accommodate electrifications and bigger vehicles. Continue to work on identifying a new location and securement of funding for the construction of a new park and ride and redevelopment of the old park and ride into a bus storage and maintenance facility. Refinement of the van pooling program and implement an e-bike lending library. Continue implementation of the intelligent information system project, which includes improved dispatching software, real-time technology, automated passenger counters, reader boards, and improved camera technology. These grant-funded investments will improve rider experience and staff ability to analyze and track ridership. Continue to expand outreach to vulnerable communities to ensure access and awareness of transit. Ensure website and promotional materials are in plain language and have an accessible user interface. Continue to explore innovative options and implement solutions to address specific transportation needs. Local NEMT and door-through-door, after-hour hotel, bar, restaurant shuttle, and procure new vehicles for local and regional resources or services, and expand employee transportation benefits and pursue funding opportunities to create protected employee bike parking. The additional thing that the board asked me to add at our last meeting as part of my review was to potentially look at adding additional project management help that would help with some of these big projects we have. So the overview of the fiscal year 25 proposed budget. The fiscal year 2025 budget allows for CAT to maintain and enhance current services and begin implementation of key projects identified in the Transit Master Plan Update 2023. Our expectation is that ridership will continue to increase and be consistent with our ongoing investment. The budget strategy is outlined in the attached budget. The fiscal year 25 budget has been broken out into resources, administrative requirements, operating requirements, and non-allocated requirements. For resources, the general budget consists of resources from federal grants, state payroll tax collection, property tax revenues, and a variety of other smaller sources. CAT has included 1.4 million in capital grant funds that were included in the fiscal year 24 budget that were not spent and revenue was not received. In addition, CAT continues to carry over some statewide transportation improvement fund formula funds that were not spent in the fiscal 21 through 23 funding cycle that have been reserved for bus stop improvements to ensure ADA accessibility, but it can also be used for capital expansion and replacement. The staff has included over 2 million in different types of federal grant funds that have been applied for, but have not yet been awarded per state of Oregon recommendations. 810,000 for new seasonal service vehicles that can accommodate recreational gear and a low floor trolley, 900,000 for facility site development, and 400,000 for increased demand response capacity. Administrative requirements. Under administrative requirements, staff have included administrative materials and services, administrative personnel services, and administrative capital outlay. Operating requirements. Under operating requirements, staff have included operating materials and services, operating personnel services, and operating capital outlay. Non-allocated requirements. Approximately 1.14 million of non-allocated resources are budgeted as contingency funds and funds reserved for future use. In summary, the draft fiscal year 25 budget moves us forward with board's goals to implement the Transit Master Plan Update 2023, continue efforts to increase ridership, replace aging vehicles, build upon existing partnerships, and expand transit connectivity within the region. Further, I want to thank the citizens of Hood River County and our riders for the continued support of their public transportation system. I look forward to the upcoming year and working with staff, the board, and partner organizations to provide dependable, safe, and consistent public transit services to our community. Thank you. All right. So, any questions on the budget message?
I just need to know what NEMT means.
Yes, it's non-emergency medical transport.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And there was one more. If I can find it. And an LGPI, local government improvement. Plan.
Investment.
Yes,
Yeah.
investment.
Cool. Okay. Those are the two questions I had.
Yeah.
I have a kind of a generic one.
Yes.
I think it's addressed in here, but you talk in several places about grants that maybe you got but didn't use in the past, and grants that you think you're gonna get in the future. It's not totally clear to me. If you didn't use that money in 24, it's not showing in 24 now, it's only showing in 25.
So it will not have been spent in 24.
Okay.
But it was allocated in the budget. So there's initially.
Yeah.
And so we just have reallocated it to fiscal year 25.
Okay, because there's a huge jump in the budgets from 24 to 25. And some of that is that money and some of that is new money.
Yes,
Oh, so that has been taken out of what we see in 24, or it hasn't.
it hasn't been taken out of 24. It'll just be, so it was included in there. And it'll be included on the, if you look at the LB 20, if you're looking at the adopted budget this year column, all those things that have been reallocated to fiscal year 25, they still exist in that column.
Because they're still sitting there.
They're still sitting there. They were included in the original budget. And And we don't need to do a supplemental budget if we have spent less than what is in the budget. We only have to do a supplemental budget if they're over.
Okay.
So. And then we have included it again in the fiscal year 25 budget. And a lot of those things that we did not spend last year, or that we have reallocated to the fiscal year 25, we have to spend this year.
It's a
Because
biennium, so.
it's the end of the biennium and it's, the grant is specific to the biennium.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things like the vehicles, like there's electric vehicles, that we have grants for that I'm holding off on purchasing. They're not part of the no-low grant. So they're not part of the really big electric infrastructure grant that we got. They were ones that were applied for, I don't know, 3-4 years ago now at this point. And I'm just waiting for there to be inventory that can do our range too, that we need.
Okay.
And that is acceptable with ODOT.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah.
just gonna ask you.
Yeah.
And it also.
So Amy,
refers-
just because I was unclear about that as well, just to be specific, if I could.
Yes.
In the resources column or the resources section, you said CAT, and I'm sorry if I'm rehashing the same conversation. CAT has included 1.4 million capital grant funds, so we're carrying that over from 24 to 25, which is okay. We did not spend in 24, we'll show it in 25, but the revenue, the actual check, for lack of a better word, will show up in 25 as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then-
Unless we don't receive the vehicles in fiscal year 2025,
Okay.
then you would not actually spend it, but they are in the budget.
And then if we don't get them in 2025, we'll lose the money or lose the opportunity to utilize the money because it's the end of the biennium.
Well, so for those specifically, so the vehicle grants, anything, those are all, I'd have to double check, but I believe we have through like fiscal year 26 to spend those grants.
Okay.
Either 26 or 27. ODOT had extended those specific
the monies,
electric
okay.
vehicle
Because of
grants.
you couldn't get them.
Yeah, because of
Okay.
supply chain issues.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you. And then the other question I had real quickly was just the a little bit more description on accomplishments. It was mentioned real quickly on that Hood River Connect was discontinued or removed of services. What is Hood River Connect again?
So it's a tiny little connector service that the intent of it is to connect Columbia Gorge Express riders to the downtown core. Because the Columbia Gorge Express doesn't stop in downtown Hood River. The goal of that was to make it easier for people to get from the CAT station, which is where the Columbia Gorge Express drops them off at, to downtown. It didn't prove to be as successful as we were hoping to. There are other ways to access downtown. So people can take the Hood River City route and do the loop. And people can also take the link bus from the port transfer site to CAT.
Great, thank you.
And then I have one thing, you're talking about a low floor trolley.
Yes,
You're planning to get your own trolley?
yes,
Ooh,
I had
what
that
color
question
is
too.
it going to be?
purple.
No more pink.
Can you tell me what low floor means? I was
Yeah.
gonna ask that.
That's a great question. So low floor means that the bus can kneel essentially. So
It can kneel.
will kneel or there's a ramp that comes out, so it's easier to
Oh,
load.
to load.
Mhm,
Okay.
individuals that
Okay,
have a
I get
mobility
it.
device
Okay.
or a stroller.
A stroller or
Yeah.
anything. Or
Yeah.
big okay, got it.
So a little bit of back history for people who might not know. I think 2 years ago is when we stopped doing it, but we were using a big trolley to operate the city route on during the summer season.
Right.
We were just having so many difficulties with that bus and it was really expensive to repair. And they are surprisingly expensive to buy, even used. So my thought is, and just my general strategy right now, is to get grants to buy new buses,
Mhm.
because they're gonna last us longer and they're easier to budget for the maintenance. And they're not as expensive maintenance wise. And that is also my strategy for the Gorge to Mountain buses. Right now we have the big Gilligs that operate and they're very expensive and hard to maintain. And then it just makes it difficult for budgeting reasons because I have a specific amount of preventive maintenance money that I have access to. So the strategy there is to get new buses, that hopefully you'll have less issues and can safely, accommodate the recreational gear.
And you have a bus that goes up to the mountain all year round?
Just during the winter season.
Okay, 'cause I thought year-round services. And then you had the Gorge to Mountain Express. They're separate.
They are separate, but I can
Okay.
understand how that might be.
Got
confusing.
it. I understand. I was wondering. Okay, and I know the document.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll go through. What would be more helpful? I can go through the different highlights of the budget and then go through the LB20 at the same time, or we can do the LB20 and go through questions. And dig in more.
I
Highlights?
just got to say that. I think I need the highlights first.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, and then for this one, because I know it is a little more meaty, I'll pause for questions after each section.
Okay.
All right, so beginning fund balance, staff anticipates a beginning fund balance of approximately 1.16 million from fiscal year 24. Of this, 200,000 is expected to be statewide transportation improvement fund formula funds. That were not spent in the 21-23 funding cycle, that have been reserved for bus stop improvements to ensure ADA accessibility, but can also be used for capital expansion or replacement. So that means I can use it for match funds for the vehicle purchases. The remaining 916,000 are unallocated funds.
Got it.
Yeah,
916 or 960?
Nice.
Should be-
16. Is that what I
it says
have here?
16 here, but I am realizing
You're saying it's-
it says 960 on the LB20.
Yeah.
So I think we were doing a couple updates and I missed that number when I was
Oh,
updating.
good catch.
So I will make sure that is updated.
Because that number is the one that pulls up from end of 24. right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And that is somewhat of a guesstimate, because obviously we're not quite there yet. Fare revenue, the low cost annual Gorge Transit Pass program has seen steady 20% growth year over year with a large local following who consistently purchases the pass year after year. Partner transit providers and the board of directors should consider increasing the cost in the next couple of years to reflect rising operational expenses. We have not done that because the purpose of this pass too is to keep it very low cost and affordable for our locals. Staff are expecting a roughly 2% increase in one-way fares due to a trend of steady increase in ridership.
So how many passes do you sell in a year now? Roughly.
Oh, do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can send you
We're
that.
talking
information.
thousands, I'm guessing.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, we paid out the partners and what, like 21,000 or,
Uh-huh.
so the total sales was like. 60.
So
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
many people do you think who use the pass versus the pay?
I would say the majority of the riders use passes.
So
Once
it's
the
mainly
change,
locals.
once
Yeah.
the change was implemented to the date of purchase, the sales started increasing as well. It was very favorable. Yeah,
And
a lot of people now will get calls out of Portland that have questions about the pass. So you're like, oh, I've heard about this. How do I get it? So yeah, it's been very well received.
It's almost $150 for them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Multnomah County, great.
Yeah, I would say the majority of the people who use the one-way fares are the visitors, out of towners. Okay, but I will give you that information. Oh. All right, sounds good, Greg.
Is he leaving?
He's going on his,
Right,
on his phone and just. gonna-
Can you hear me, Greg? My daughter McKenna's with you. She's from Cooper Spur. Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Greg.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, feedback.
All right. Yeah, I did invite McKenna to dinner last night with the rest of the group, but I've seen her a couple times at breakfast as well.
Say hi.
Okay, I will.
All right.
She's very shy.
Yeah.
This stuff is not her gig at all.
It takes some time to get used to.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Great.
contract revenue. Due to an ongoing contract with the US Forest Service to staff the Multnomah Falls ID4 permit program and operate the Dog Mountain Shuttle, contract revenue is expected to remain similar to fiscal year 24. We have all the funding secured for that. It is important to note that that's not all coming from the Forest Service. This year, there was kind of a shortfall in funding, so we had a lot of partners chip in. Which is great, but also really signals the need for a long-term sustainable funding solution.
For Multnomah Falls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we also do contract that service out to another contractor. So the first couple of years when we did it, we actually did the staffing, so we hired seasonal staff and then we operated the program. Last year was the first year that I actually contracted out the service to someone else. And that has been working out pretty well and it's less of a stress on staff.
You were on the news last night.
Cat was?
Well, the parking at
The-
Multnomah
The
Falls.
program.
the
Yeah,
program.
there's currently a little bit of a kerfuffle that is.
A kerfuffle. I
that is-
love that word.
That
Okay.
is happening with actually, it's not specifically with our contracted services. But it is the vendor that we are.
The
gonna be
vendor, if
using.
it's contracted to somebody else, is what I.
As well,
understood.
yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I was surprised.
So Amy,
Um,
are just a question on that
yeah.
specifically, is your vision that we continue to manage that relationship both from Multnomah Falls or from Forest Service to the vendor, or are we trying to get out of that business altogether?
So
And I-
long term, I don't think it necessarily makes sense for us. I do think though, we have an invested interest in making sure that our buses can safely access that parking lot. So
Right.
until there is a long-term or better solution.
Yeah.
It makes sense for us to be involved. And we don't lose any money. We're not paying any money towards this program. It is fully absorbed by other partners.
Okay.
So when you say our buses, do you mean the contracted company's buses or?
No, so for our Columbia Gorge Express service that goes from Portland to Hood River,
We stop in
Um, it stops in Multnomah Falls.
Okay.
And when that parking lot is not managed to some degree, and these are right now, the program is timed use permits. And then our Multnomah Falls transportation ambassadors are the ones that are the permit checkers. And then if people have permits, they let them into the park. So if that is not managed, we have found that there are backups onto the highway.
Yeah, I
Our-
was just thinking that.
Yep. Our buses cannot safely access the site,
Oh,
or if they can even access it, then it takes an extra amount of time in order to do it.
yeah.
So this is really in it's in the interest of our riders and our employees to ensure that we can safely access that site. And it is an ongoing conversation that I am part of. It's called the Gorge Forum Group. And I meet with them every 2 weeks to try to figure out a long-term solution.
And it's a forum on transportation.
Yeah,
mainly
so
through the
it's
gorge.
actually all the major players at Multnomah Falls. So it's
Okay.
the Oregon State Parks, it's ODOT, it's Multnomah County, the US Forest Service, Even Commissioner Stegman attends as well, from Multnomah County.
Okay.
And
That is.
One of the commissioners. Yeah, so it's a place where decision makers can come together and discuss, or
Okay.
where at least representatives can discuss and then go back to their respective decision makers.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so contract, oh, no, I already did that. Federal assistance, staff has included 592,218 in 5311 grants to purchase 2 new 30+ passenger buses for the Columbia Gorge Express service that were originally included in the fiscal year 24 budget, but was not spent nor received during the current fiscal year. Now, there is still a chance that we might get them. I think it's less likely, but there's always the possibility we'll get them on June 29th. But they will most likely come at the end of summer, early fall, which we are so excited, because then we can use, for this year, we can use those buses on our Gorge to Mountain service.
Okay.
The vehicle, and use them as extra ones.
So that money is in the 25 budget, not in the 24 budget.
So that 592,000 is in the 24 budget, but it has also been included in the fiscal year 25.
Oh, okay. So at some point, there's gonna be some revisions, but yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And staff additionally has included over 663,516 in 5339 and 5311 funds for electric vehicles, not part of the NOLO award. They were also in the fiscal year 24 budget, and they're also in the 25 budget.
Is that what you were talking about earlier? Those are the funds you were talking about earlier that need to be spent by 27. Okay.
Yeah. And we will probably spend a portion of that on a Ford manufactured transit electric vehicle that we can use for our dial ride type of things. But the other remaining funds, the intent is for larger electric vehicles, and those are the ones that I'm still waiting on inventory.
Shopping for.
Yeah. Exactly. We have learned with electric vehicles, we have purchased one. We have learned that there is, there's definitely a lot of research to be done on those, and it really depends on the manufacturer as well. All right, the last allocation of CARES funding has been received, 200,000 of which will be used to help mitigate the impacts of the costly vehicle repairs and operational expenses. Staff has streamlined processes, discontinued the Cascade Locks and Connect services, and applied for more funding through other programs to mitigate the need for CARES. As you all know, with COVID, just and the supply chain and the costs, it's really been hard to predict expenses. And especially when you think I have to essentially predict my expenses 3 years ahead of when that expense is actually going to occur. So the CARES Fund have helped kind of mitigate that gap. I feel confident that in the next biennium, we have a better understanding of those expenses, and our grants that we apply for are going to be able to cover all those expenses, and there will be no additional need for CARES. Does that make sense?
I thought when you were doing your report that you said that you discontinued Cascade Locks and the Dells?
The DALs and Connect services, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. We have discontinued Cascade Locks and the Connect service. The DAL service is not discontinued. It is moved over from us operating it to the link operating.
Got it. Okay, now I'm following you.
Yeah.
Because I thought there would be something from the Dells to Hood River.
Yeah, it's a very important
Yeah.
leg. It just is no longer
No
operated
longer
by
yours.
us.
Got it. Thank you.
Staff was awarded over 6 million FTA low or no emission bus grant funds. The agreement has not yet been finalized, but when it is, only a small amount, 45,000 would be used in the 25 to hire a consultant to help plan facility expansion and modification for large electric buses. Staff has applied for several grants. So sorry, just to talk a little more about that no low. Again, it really all depends on when the agreement is finalized with ODOT. For when we can kind of start
You
moving
gotta
on
get
that.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that means there's 6 million not on this? That could be coming our way?
Not this, it will be coming our way, but it'll not be on this, and it'll be
25.
on, yeah,
25,
it'll be in
26.
26.
26, thank you.
There's a
because they
small
go
portion,
by-
there's 45,000, but that's it.
Okay,
And
Yeah.
that's mainly gonna be buses, or that can be infrastructure as well?
It's infrastructure and buses.
Okay.
So, for a little bit of backstory, so what, plan is to renovate our current park and ride down there. And, make that a bus storage and maintenance facility. And we'll have to build it out so it can accommodate electric vehicles. We will also have to need to do some infrastructure changes up here for a fast charger for electric vehicles as well. We'll also be looking for a park and ride, but no,
We don't have one
location
yet.
has been identified for a new one.
There's a piece of property over there for sale.
There is.
How much is it? How much is he asking?
I think it's about 500-ish thousand.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know. I just, when I picked up my packet yesterday, I noticed that for sale sign.
Yeah,
And I
Yeah.
just noticed the two new buildings over here on what used to be an empty lot.
Yeah.
yeah,
But the time's gotta be right, and it wasn't right at that time.
yep, and we have a very specific process that we have to go through. We have to go through NEPA and FTA in order, to even look at properties, so.
But you're in the line to get some grants to do this stuff, so
Yeah.
that's great.
We're laying the foundational groundwork. Okay, so staff has applied for several grants, including vehicle replacement funds to purchase the 35 to 40-foot vehicles with room for recreational gear. Well, I really hammered this home. To operate seasonal services and a low floor trolley that would be used on the Hood River City route. 5339 funds to relocate the current park and ride so that the current park and ride can be developed into a bus storage and maintenance facility. And for the initial stages of implementing a mobility hub transfer facility at the Hood River waterfront, which we are working with the port on.
Oh, you
Um,
are, okay.
We are.
And that
Then,
is at the current location?
it will be
roughly?
changed a little bit. It'll be closer to lot 1.
Okay.
And,
Everybody knows lot 1.
yeah,
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
God,
yeah.
It's
But
been there forever.
I
Yeah.
know, I know.
We're working with the port on that and,
That's all we call it, though. We've never gone above it to call it anything else.
okay, 5310 funds to expand demand response services, which would allow Upper Valley service to transition into a fixed route service. My only service that hasn't been, so my only service that is one of our, core services that has not increased in ridership is the Upper Valley. And from what my understanding of talking for riders and survey responses is a lot of that has to do with the dependability because it is a deviated fixed route. It is not a dependable service because it'll either come too late or it'll be super delayed. Because it has to do the
Has to
pickups.
do the
Yeah.
other stuff.
So I've applied for funding, do not know if it's been awarded yet, in order to separate those services.
Okay, so that was
Yeah.
that was one of my questions. So you need more funding, because you mentioned that earlier. Because you need to supplement it with more dial ride. And then.
Yeah,
that
because
makes
if
sense.
I'm making anything, if I have a service that is a local route, and is not considered a commuter or inner city route, there has to be some sort of, ADA paratransit service available within a 3/4 mile of the route. So that Upper Valley route, if I make that a fixed route service in order to make it more dependable, then I have to have ADA paratransit service. And because I know that community up there is not necessarily the people who need that service isn't necessarily gonna be 3/4 of a mile from that route. It's important to have that expanded dial ride
So
service.
the funding is gonna, to be another van, to be another vehicle?
Good question. So it would be to fund a couple additional drivers. And because it'll take it from, so it'll expand our current dial-a-ride service Monday through Friday to include the Upper Valley. And it'll be an additional vehicle, or additional driver and vehicle, but we have the vehicle, Monday through Friday. And then we will also need a driver on the weekends because it'll make it so that there is dial-a-ride available on the weekends as well. And then it'll also fund a dispatcher too
Oh,
on
wow.
weekends, which is it's a big one.
That's a big one,
Yeah,
And the need is there in the Upper Valley.
the need is there. I consistently got it responses, well, in our 2020 coordinated transportation plan, in our 23 transit master plan, and consistent feedback that we get from riders all the time is that they want Upper Valley residents want more dependable service or just easier access to appointments.
Okay.
So for example, with the current deviated fixed route, it is not uncommon for someone to get a ride at 8 o'clock in the morning for a 9 o'clock appointment. And then they have to wait until like 1, 2 o'clock in order to get the next Upper Valley bus back home. And that's just for an hour appointment. And then,
What's the difference between a deviated and non-deviated fixed route?
good question. So fixed route means that there is a specific route and specific stops that the bus will stop at every single time, and it cannot deviate from that specified route. So our Hood River City route, that is a fixed route. Our Columbia Gorge Express, that is also a fixed route. So it cannot stop at additional stops or go to houses.
Pick somebody up doing this on the street.
The
Right.
city route can do that because we have flag stops, but that is,
but they're on that existing route.
yeah.
Okay,
But they have to be on that route.
okay.
So the deviated route, so for an example, on the Upper Valley, so it still has stops, but it does not have a specified route. So one day, depending on the custom pickups or drop-offs, that Upper Valley bus can go up Highway 35, and another day, or it go up, is it what? 281 D Highway. It could go up that way depending on the pickups that it has. So it doesn't have a specified route, and it doesn't necessarily, we could be 20 minutes off of the scheduled arrival time at a bus stop.
Okay.
And that gets confusing to people.
Yeah.
So all those people are calling in to schedule a ride, essentially.
Right.
The people who are doing cuts and pickup or drop offs, yes. We can still pick up people at the designated stops that have not scheduled a ride. But they do not get a deviated drop off. Or custom pick
Sounds like
or
they're
drop
usually
off.
pretty frustrated.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here going,
Yeah,
so what
that's
if you're
gotta-
late for your doctor appointment? Yeah.
So that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
So it's the people of other means are not gonna use our service.
Right.
Or B, people are late to doctor's appointments, so they then go do a super early ride in
Ugh.
case, and so then they're literally spending their entire day for it.
And so what you were talking about
Painful.
earlier
Yeah.
with there needing to be ADA accessible service,
Mhm.
and that's part of the fact, or that's baked into the fact that we're using 5310 funds for that, because that's target seniors and disabled.
And it's just
Riders.
it's just a requirement, for any fixed route
And,
services,
okay, and it's right.
like any local.
It doesn't
fixed
matter
route
where
service.
we're using the funding, it's just.
It's a
baked in.
requirement, yeah.
So
And
essentially,
it's- Yep, go ahead.
oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it just stems from the ADA, civil rights. law.
Okay.
But yeah, and then we meet that requirement, that ADA paratransit, complementary paratransit requirement for deviated fixed route services with the fact that we can do those deviations. So if we remove the deviations and just do a fixed route, that's fine, we can do that, but we just have to add, other
Got it.
services.
So it kicks in a whole nother funding problem or opportunity, I should say.
Yeah,
Operation.
And you're trying to then service both of those routes, even though you're gonna have a fixed route on only one of them. You're trying to service picking people up in
Yeah.
the entire Upper Valley.
so, and there is, right now, we've chosen to kind of keep it broad, so we will allow for general population to access those dial-a-ride services. That is something that we can restrict.
Yeah.
So if we decide, 2 years in advance or ahead of, or in the future, that having, dial-a-ride open to the public in the Upper Valley is just, we don't have enough resources to do it, then we can restrict that access. I would like to keep it open if we can, because I think there's a lot of individuals who, just because of the geography of Upper Valley, won't be able to use the fixed route service. Okay, any other questions on that? All right, so state assistance, 194,000 in STIP discretionary funding has been included to implement the Intelligent Information Systems project, which will include installing a improved camera system on vehicles, reader boards, automated passenger counters, improved dispatching software, and real-time technology. 203,000 has been included for the carbon reduction program, which includes capital infrastructure for an e-bike lending library, and 40K for a taxi voucher program to reduce inebriated driving in the city of Hood River. CAT has received 40K in funding from WashDOT for the weekend white salmon service and the Dog Mountain Shuttle, and is working with ODOT to figure out a way to transit to serve Mitchell Point.
Oh,
Yeah.
the new location.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
this has not yet
I
been
read-
confirmed,
I read over that one.
but expected to be 30,000. And that
Okay.
was included in our budget, because the likelihood is that it will pan out.
Because it's gonna cost like something like 5 million to build those last 2 miles or even more.
There's
You can
also,
fund cat for a long time.
It's crazy that wasn't included in the original funding for that. It's like they knew that they were gonna have the 2 miles to do, yeah, and they didn't.
And they didn't have.
We
the
digress.
They didn't have the ownerships either.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was part of it. There's a couple.
So a little
Or two.
2-mile shuttle essentially from
Yeah.
Mitchell Point to here
yes.
Or to the Gorge Hotel or something.
or someplace. Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
The remaining anticipated state revenue consists of statewide transportation improvement fund formula and discretionary funding, and revenue from the statewide mass transit tax. This revenue funds all or partial amounts of ongoing operations for the Columbia Gorge Express, Hood River City Route, Dial Ride, Upper Valley Gorge to Mount Express, outreach and mobility projects.
STIF has become a large chunk of the budget.
It is, for the next biennium, it will still be a large chunk of the budget, but the strategy is gonna be more using it for match. And as we will have access to more 5311 funds for actual operations, and then we'll use the STIF funds for the match. Cause 5311 funds is only 50%.
Okay.
Other revenue, the district is expecting to sell a portion of the aging fleet and has created a local government investment pool LGIP account through the Oregon State Treasury. This potential revenue generator could generate 20 to 40K in interest revenue if available cash. 900,000, which is our estimate, is placed in an LGIP account.
So that's just sitting in a bank account someplace right now?
Yeah, so right now it's in the county held LGIP.
Oh.
And
Okay.
we have made the decision, the board made the decision to move it over to a district held LGIP account, just so there is a little bit more understanding of the interest earned.
Which
Because,
wasn't an issue for years because there was no interest.
Yeah.
But now there's beginning to be interest again on these things.
yeah. And it just a understanding clarity reasons too. As in the county held LGIP account, it's not just our money, right? It's a lot of other monies. Okay. So
Amy,
admini-
if I could ask one quick question, I think I ask this
Yes,
question
please.
every year. So apologize. Of the funds, of the sources, which ones do you believe to be most volatile? And does that give you concern, or do you have any concern? Particularly with federal state assistance. I mean, those are big amounts, and always concerned about the fluctuation of those funds.
Yeah, so the difficult one to predict is the STIF formula funds. Because essentially we could receive anywhere from 100% of a certain amount of funds to 150% of those funds. The way that it works is when you create the STIF formula plan, you get allotted with a certain amount of money. They say that you will get a minimum amount of this. But if more taxes come in than what's expected, if I give a potential allocation of 150% of that amount, I could potentially get 50%
so you
additional
have to have
funds.
you have to have your little hand in there first before you even know.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
It's a good
So,
way to put it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I have to say like, hey, here's what the allocation could be at that
So it's
150% level. And so we have to be very careful each quarter. We keep an eye on how much funds that we are actually receiving, where it is between that 100% and that 150%, which is one of the reasons why I am moving the strategy more to using it as match funds,
Okay.
where it's more heavily matched rather than funding the
And
entirety. of
it's
service.
granted to you, you have it, and you know you can use that specific amount as a match and something comes along, you just put it in.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Or if there's
So you
like
can't-
additional, yeah,
Feels
go ahead.
safer.
You can't take a conservative approach and ask for 150% and budget for 100 essentially. You have to ask and plan for 150% to get the 150%.
Yeah, well, ish, right now, yes, but we have movement room, right? We have the
Yeah.
ability to say, hey, we're gonna hold on these projects, dependent on this fund, so we only move forward on certain projects depending on what the stiff formula funds that are coming in. Moving to the strategy where it's match, it's more, here's the budget, are at 100%, this is all our match responsibilities for our grants. But then we have room in the plan so that we can do some additional projects if we're getting that 150% level. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
All your match requirements will be fulfilled by the 100%, and then if you
Right.
get the extra, it's.
Then we have some other projects that we can use that
But
for.
you don't get the extra unless you have asked for it in
Right.
your.
Yeah, so
That's
the
what I wasn't
plan,
following, just.
so the plan would be included, so the plan that I submit to the state would include that 150% level.
Okay.
But under those calculations, 100% is for my match requirements that I have to have.
Okay,
And then 50% of that would be
But
the other projects.
okay.
But that wouldn't come into play until fiscal year 26. Because right now we're in the current biennium.
I don't know how you keep track of all the money and the grants. That's amazing.
We have lots of trackers.
Yeah,
Lots of trackers.
Jeremy, sorry, did you have a
Amazing.
question?
No, that answers the question. Appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, was that high level yet detailed enough to
Yeah.
understand?
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, that's good for the state stuff. The federal stuff,
Yeah.
what's your magic ball on your,
so the federal,
wishing ball or not wishing ball? What am I trying to see?
Magic wand.
No, your,
No.
yeah.
crystal ball.
Crystal ball, there it is. Thank
Hey.
you for the future.
so far, we are a little bit more protected with federal funds than some of those bigger agencies, because we are in the small rural agency category. So our 5311 funds and 5310 funds are pretty stable. I get a little bit more concerned with the 5311 funds because they did that adjustment that gave us more money at the last biennium. I'm always just a little hesitant. I want to make sure that that is the number that we're getting consistently before I shift my strategy. So that's why this past biennium, I used some of those formula funds that we received for the Columbia Gorge Express vehicles rather than operating costs. Because I didn't want to change our operations or increase our service levels, not knowing if those funds may fluctuate over the next biennium. So
Yeah.
from what I'm hearing now is that, so we got, I think it was $900,000 the last biennium for the fiscal year 23-25 biennium for 5311 funds. So my understanding is that we should be receiving a very similar number to that for this next biennium. So it seems like my concerns for that were not necessarily justified, but we will continue to see.
It doesn't hurt to be concerned because then you're not gonna get surprises.
That
So that's smart.
was kind of my initial thought.
Yeah.
Tamara, do you have any questions too? I'll make
No,
sure.
you're explaining it very well and they're asking all the right questions, so I'm good.
Okay. So under administrative materials and services, Professional fees, have increased dramatically due to 300,000 added for project management, architectural, engineering, and design expenses as part of the 5339 facility site development project, which again, we have applied for but have not yet been awarded. But that would relocate the current park and ride and pay for initial site development work for the mobility hub and key transfer facility at the Port of Hood River Lot 1.
Yeah, and you would put your, what facility at Lot 1?
So it's just a mobility hub transfer facility, so it would just allow for 3 to 4 buses to transfer at any
Oh,
given
okay,
time.
okay.
And then we can use that as the regional transit hub.
Okay, that's,
And with things like Greyhound and everything, use that as well?
Yes.
Get 'em
because
out of-
that.
get them out of the train station.
Yeah.
Yeah, and get them out of downtown. And then it would also allow so the other partners didn't have to necessarily come here for all the transfers. And we can centralize it closer to downtown.
Okay.
And then that also relieves the issue of what we had with, which is why the Hood River Connect service became a thing. To get people closer to downtown.
Right.
And you can buy one of those cute little electric things to take people from that transit site to actually downtown.
To downtown. It's a little
It's a
hospital.
little robot.
Funding library.
Oh, there you go. Okay, we're working it. We're working it.
Because it is kind of hostile to go from the port to downtown.
Yeah, it's not great.
If you're just walking, yeah.
Yeah,
The wind just is blowing stuff around. and people-
there's some pedestrian improvements that could happen.
There are.
This grant, yeah, I already said that. Additionally, the district is searching for a new auditor and expects the cost to be significantly more than previous auditors. Due to low supply and high demand. If you know of any auditors, please let them know we're
Mhm.
looking. The funds set aside in fiscal year 24 for a consultant who specializes in transit facility design and electrification as part of the FTA low or no emission bus program that the district was awarded but not used as the contract is still in the process of being finalized. And that's included in the professional fees as well. And then there's nothing really to note with building expenses. It went down from last year because we had to replace our HVAC system that has now been replaced and
Oh, that
working
was-
fine.
okay.
Office supplies remain similar. Professional fees, that's the big bump that I was talking about. And then other administrative expenses should stay relatively same. Administrative personnel services, administrative wages in fiscal year 24, staff introduced a formalized pay step chart that is included in Exhibit A, which creates an objective understanding of step increases if an employee receives a positive performance review and an increase is recommended by the manager. The chart remains the same as last year. There is no additional cost of living increase recommended. There are 3 FTEs that are included in this category: executive director, office manager, and administrative assistant. So I mentioned earlier that the board had asked me at the last board meeting to consider, maybe having a project manager. If that was something that the budget committee wanted to consider adding funds, that is not reflected in the budget as of now. That could be a consideration. We can splice out a piece of that expense for an extra FTE through our different operational grants. But there is a high likelihood that some of that will have to come out of the reserve to pay for someone if the budget committee wanted to recommend that. And if that is something that you guys want to move forward, I can add the rough estimate of
Yeah.
what that
It'd be
expense
good
would
to
be.
just see a number associated with that.
Would it be helpful?
I think so. I would love to say that I can do all of this on my own. But I think you can, just see with how long it's taken me to get bus stops added in the Hood River or City Hood River. It's difficult to do. And just for Jeremy, I don't think you were here before I was promoted, but I honestly, I don't remember. But basically before I was promoted, that's kind of what I did. I was kind of the project management, did some marketing outreach stuff and did some planning work as well. And I chose not to replace me, because I wasn't sure at the time that that's what we needed. And I wanted to instead put those resources into our field supervisor team to ensure that we could make sure we had field supervisor coverage whenever we were operating. And so that's what I did. I did that. And then I also, yeah, that is what I did.
Okay. Yeah, I
Um,
would advocate for it if you think it's helpful. I'm also concerned just holistically that, not concerned, I wouldn't say. I would say that being watchful eye that if we have money to spend, that we spend it for the benefit of our constituency. And
Yeah,
that's a
It's something that's
conversation we've
gonna play a
had.
multiplier. It's gonna make your job easier,
Yeah.
make growth easier. I mean, we went on about this at the last board meeting quite a bit, and I think
Yeah,
we're all
it-
very much in agreement that she needs fewer hats to wear.
Fewer hats.
Well,
you're
and
right.
I'm just looking at this budget now with looking at, okay, you're gonna do a redo of all of this. and
Yeah.
of All of this, and then maybe a new thing down at the port. Yeah, I think we're understaffed, if that's all gonna happen.
yeah, and I think, my ideal world is to, be able to include it in the grant applications that I'm doing in the fall for the fiscal year 25 through 27 biennium. But then that's another year we need to wait. And so I guess that's kind of the question too, of how to balance that, is if it's worth getting a move on these projects and ensuring that they're at least progressing a little bit quicker, or at least the movement is there, and then we would incorporate it in the new applications in the fall. And I think, I always, just the way that I am, I would always like it to be in our grants. But I think I could definitely see the benefit of including it this year. If the budget committee and the board feels comfortable with it, it would just allow us to get through some projects a little quicker.
Right, because you have the professional fees in the budget this year, and you're gonna need somebody to manage.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
And also you just need to start looking for the right person. I remember at another time when there was only an ED. And the board was
Mhm.
pushing for an assistant to the ED. And suddenly somebody's resume just dropped out of the sky.
I wonder who that
I
was.
wonder who that was, says Twinkle, Tinkerbell.
Because
Oh,
it does have to
God,
be the
that's
right
exciting.
person too,
Yeah,
and it's gotta be the right mix.
Yeah.
and I think with the amount of projects that we have now, I feel comfortable with because I was really a mismatch of a lot of different hats. And I think with the projects that we have now, it can be really a pretty true project
Mm.
manager role.
As far as
Yeah.
creating the job.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And special projects type of thing.
Yeah.
Jeremy, did that answer your questions?
Yes, it did.
Okay, anything else you want to add to that?
I want to add something.
Yes, please.
I love this conversation and I want to thank everybody for your support and helping move this forward, because my concern is that we burn out Amy and lose her. So everything we can do to keep her. And I think the board agrees with that. So thank you.
Thank you, Tamara, I appreciate that.
Nice, yeah.
It's a very supportive board. I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Back to-
I will, for the next meeting, I will create an estimate for what that would be, and you would see it under administrative wages.
Under this one, okay.
Administrative benefits are expected to increase 7% from fiscal year 24. All three administrative personnel receive high health stipends, which are reflected in wages rather than benefits. That's why benefits are pretty low. We have also adjusted our estimation for the employer tax, which is why it's showing it lower than fiscal year 24. So we used to use 16% and now we use, I believe, 13%. So there's no administrative capital outlay anticipated for this upcoming year. Operating materials and services, fuel, since gasoline prices remain volatile, staff is allowed for an additional buffer in case price increase or remain high. Again, we've been doing really well this year, but we really, because there's so much happening in the world with Ukraine, Israel, Iran, all the things. So operation expenses, while the district has ordered 2 new vehicles in fiscal year 24, they have not yet been delivered and most of the fleet is older and continues to have expensive repairs. If the vehicle replacement grant, 2 35-foot 40 vehicles and 1 low floor trolley is awarded, this will assist in reducing reliance on older vehicles, but they are 1.5 years out from implementation. The budget of 208,000 for operation expenses allows for needed repairs. Some of this is 5310 funds that will need to be used by the end of the fiscal year 23-25 biennium. If that happens, if we have extra funds close to the end of the biennium, we start looking at, okay, can we purchase tires? What are some additional things that we need for our fleet? Make sure we're starting the new year and our new biennium nice and fresh. Communication expenses. This is an increase of roughly 30,000 due to stiff discretionary funds for Intelligent Information Systems project was awarded, which will assist the district with improving dispatching software and real-time information. So this is the last year that we can spend those funds. So we have to finish up those projects. Vehicle insurance, staff is expecting the insurance to stay relatively the same. As the district removes aging vehicles from the fleet and replaces them with newer vehicles, staff is expecting the number of extra vehicles required to be reduced, lowering the overall insurance cost. Driver expenses, the driver training, medical exams, drug testing, and uniform expenses remains relatively stable with an anticipated cost of 10,000 for fiscal year 25. Advertising and marketing, the expected expense has decreased substantially due to the success of the Gorge Transit Pass marketing partnership with the 4 Gorge Transit agencies. This partnership has required fewer district resources to increase regional awareness. The district will continue to use the available resources for local marketing efforts. But really, it's been so successful, we really haven't needed as much as we have in the past. Yeah.
Also, just the purple buses are
I
there
know.
marketing.
I hear it every day.
And she just noticed the purple stop sign out there.
Yes, I saw that. That's cute.
That was really.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the weeds on fuel expenses because I don't really completely understand it or, how we forecast.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're basically saying fuel is gonna cost us 10% less next year, which seemed like a pretty meaningful percent to me. I don't know. I mean, we're talking about geopolitics and a buffer. I guess I don't quite understand.
So we are at, so our actual costs was, wait, is that a typo? Do you remember,
Wherever you
what was our, do you remember our actual cost right now for fuel? Because we were quite a bit lower than our fiscal year 24 budget, which
Oh,
is
then
why
the-
we got
Okay.
that
You're below
280,000.
312.
Yeah.
Significantly
So
below
you put yourself.
that. I want to say it was,
I think it was like in the 170s-ish even.
Wow.
yeah, it was
2000.
low.
We're
We were
quite
trending
lower,
really.
but we wanted to keep a buffer
Okay.
just in case.
Okay.
And are your newer buses getting better mileage? Isn't it changing that much?
For the cutaways, not that much. I assume that the new Big Columbia Gorge Express vehicles will probably help. And then also when we get rid of the old Gilligs, it will help. But that's still a good 2 years away, probably.
So you're using the sort of extrapolation of this year's costs and then adding 1% onto that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really the best way to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, grant contract match funds, as there was a delayed start of the van pool program, e-bike lending library and other transportation options, mobility services from fiscal year 24. The anticipated match funds for these programs have been included in fiscal year 25. Other expenses included in this category are Gorge Transit Pass distributions to other providers and contracting out the staffing of the Multnomah Falls X31 permit program.
Okay.
Yeah, so as you can see, pretty much everything is more or less the same. It's a little much for the operations expenses. And again, that's primarily because we didn't use quite the allotted amount this year. So we are putting that over to next year. And then communications expenses a little more because of the new dispatching software. And then advertising marketing is much lower. Okay, operating personnel services, operations wages have steadily increased due to annual wage increases and additional drivers and dispatchers to operate the expanded demand response program pending grant approval. In fiscal year 24, staff introduced a formalized pay step chart for office staff that is included in Exhibit A, which creates an objective understanding of step increases if employee receives positive performance review and is increased as recommended by manager. The chart remains the same as last year. There is no additional cost of living increase recommended. There are 4 FTEs, 1 transit operations manager and 3 field supervisors that are included in the operating personnel services, but are salaried employees and considered office staff. Drivers have a more formalized pay increase structure that is described in detail in the union contract. Operations benefits are expected to increase 7% from fiscal year 24, since several operating personnel waive their insurance and receive health stipends instead. That expenses reflected in operations wages. So again, you'll see those are pretty static. The employer tax, again, we're a little less because we're using a different formula.
Are there additional employees from 24 to 25 that we're including here, or is this just growth in wages from existing?
It also includes the additional dispatch and additional drivers for Apple Valley.
Okay. That makes sense.
Operating capital outlay. If the district receives all vehicles that have been awarded grant funds, the district will have 3 new electric vehicles and 2 new diesel vehicles. However, staff are cautious in optimism as it has been very difficult to get a hold of transit vehicles due to supply chain and range issues for the electric vehicles. Staff also included the 3 vehicle replacement vehicles, again, 2 35, 40-foot vehicles and 1 low floor trolley, although it has not yet been awarded. Staff expects to spend $167,000 on capital assets for an e-bike lending library and $200,000 in automatic passenger counters, reader boards, and an improved camera system as part of the Intelligent Information Systems project. Non-allocated, as the district does not plan to spend. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to.
I heard her go,
So this intelligent information systems is a big deal.
It's about a total of like $238,000 grant. And it has adjusted over time, from the, originally it was really to focus on the dispatch software and some automated passenger counters. It still will focus on that. But we're shifting, instead of doing all of our fleet and automated passenger counters, we're gonna just focus on the vehicles that go to and from Portland.
Okay.
And then we're gonna shift some of those funds to an improved camera system in the buses. All of our buses right now, in order for us to look at any footage, we have to go pull out the SIM card and then review the footage whenever we get a report of an incident that we need to look into. New camera systems have the ability to interact with Samsara and interact with any events that might have happened. So like harsh braking, harsh turns,
You
harsh
can
stopping.
get to it, right? We can get to the information much quicker.
Yes, so it's
Okay.
essentially, it'll actually tie to the camera footage and it'll make it
Okay.
easier for us to look up
Okay.
incidents or look into reports.
Oh, okay, so reports even from the drivers, not from
Correct.
messy passengers.
Yeah.
Okay, both.
From everybody.
From everybody,
Yeah.
okay. Do you get many drunk people on buses?
We've had our fair share.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And then the e-bike lending library.
Yeah.
I know, isn't that cool? That's right.
Yeah.
I thought that's where you were stopping.
I was warming up to it.
So that one is, so we ran into a couple hiccups. Our original understanding is that we could, spend that grant on operating costs and capital infrastructure. But it turns out that we can only do capital infrastructure. So we have shifted that to, instead of it being maybe a district managed program, I'm looking at local partners that I can potentially partner with. So
Oh.
I'm talking to Safe Routes to School, I'm talking to the library, and I'm also considering.
Would be a really good one. That
Yeah.
Seems like a really good fit.
Yeah. And then I'm also looking at maybe keeping a couple for district employees where they can actually rent them out and use them as well.
So this would be like how many bikes?
So we're looking at about like 15,
Okay.
so there'd be enough to kind of spread around.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I'm meeting with the library to explore further.
And
Oh,
so
good.
is this supposed to help people connect to bus routes, or what's the
So
thinking behind having a bus district do this?
yeah, so the additional intent, I mean, with the transit master plan, the big theme was to create these mobility hubs. So that the bus stops become these hubs where people can, you know, walk, ride, or use another form of transportation to get to. And really kind of address last mile, first mile issues. And that is kind of where the idea of the e-bike lending library came from.
Yeah, it probably came from Megan too.
It did, actually. I think she put a little beer or a little birdie in my ear.
Yeah, what a
Um,
surprise.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. But
um,
that means the mobility things I learned about
yeah,
from last year, I think, here.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's really cool up in the Heights to represent several different ways to get to a place.
yeah, and
That
that's our
one's-
hope is we're giving more tools for people's toolboxes,
Yeah.
to use, to have different transportation options. Any other questions on that? Okay. Um, so I think we're at operating, oh no, we're at non-allocated. So as the district does not plan to spend all available resources in the current year, staff has budgeted the remaining 1.14 resources as follows. Approximately 440,000 will be in contingency, so unallocated resources are reserved for contingency spending. In the event of a major unforeseen event that would significantly adjust the budget expenditures for fiscal year 25. We would still most likely, if we were gonna use that contingency, most likely need to do a supplemental budget in order to use those funds, but then the reserve for future use is just, it means that there is a really nice cushion and we cannot use that. So that stays as a nice cushion for the district. And it's approximately 3 months of operating expenses or 700,000. So that way, in case there's another COVID that happens, we're prepared for it. Additional notes, there are several vehicle special projects included in the fiscal year 25 budget. The total cost of the projects and match are included below. If all vehicles are delivered in fiscal year 25, the district will be responsible for about 420,000 in match, which is included in the budget. And then, and that is just mostly for you guys' understanding, and it also helps me kind of keep track of all those special projects.
And those match monies are scattered in different parts here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because I was looking for that number, and I didn't see it.
No, it's very much just scattered.
Yeah.
But I want you guys to understand
Yeah.
what that responsibility would be.
I just think it's great that you're getting that much, you're leveraging the money that well.
Yeah.
Leveraging, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good word.
Exhibit A, staff salary scale. So step increases are contingent on positive pay, performance, and the recommendation of the manager, and that funds are available. You will see where we currently are at. It's depending, if you print it out in color, it'll be red. If you didn't print it out in color, then it's just a little bit of a different
I
color.
was gonna ask you, are those your current employees?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that would be where
Got
we
it.
are as of July 1st. So I would bump up to step 4. Jeff, who's our operations manager, would step up to step 3. Tia would also step up to step 4. And our field supervisors, well, we just have one new one. So one would be at that point, he'll be at step 2, and then the others are at step 3.
Okay.
And then we have 2 dispatch administrative assistants that are both in step 1 and step 2.
So 8 staff are covered under this.
It should be 9. Because 1, 2, 3, and then there's 3 field supervisors. 6, 7, 8. Why is that?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
Yeah,
because I have the workstation number in my name. So yes, it's
Yes.
8. I have 9 because I've been working on a technology consultant and we have 9 laptops. So that's
Okay, you're counting laptops.
Yeah. Okay, any questions on that?
Yeah.
I
I completely understand it.
great. I'm so glad to hear
And I'm
that.
not in this business,
Yeah.
transportation.
That's great. Tamara, Jeremy?
Great work. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So glad to hear that. Is there anything that you guys would, in addition to, I believe,
Manager.
the project manager, and I need to send you some sales data for the Gorge Pass. Is there anything else that you wanted me to look at or provide you with additional details on for next meeting?
Nothing I can think of. for
And then
me.
for me,
No,
Okay,
You did a good job.
great. I'm so glad to hear that. And it looks like I am trending on time.
Are you? I was gonna look at mine.
We're at 6:30.
Time to catch the bus.
Time to catch the bus. Is it-
Are there any additional questions before I hand this over to Jeremy to maybe wrap us up? Okay, our next meeting is, oh, sorry, that's Jeremy's thing to say.
okay, let's do it. I can execute this role finally here.
Yeah.
Right,
The next meeting will be May 23rd at 5 PM. Unless there are any other issues or concerns, we can adjourn this meeting. Is someone willing to make a motion to adjourn?
Move to recess the meeting.
Is there a second?
I will
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? I don't think I heard any opposition. I vote to adjourn. So, with that, thank you, everyone. We'll see you May 23rd.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
well, adjourn
you.
at 6:28. I'm sorry, we did not include that in your cheat sheet.
A budget accepted.
Recess, okay.
Arthur Babbitts, you can't adjourn a budget committee meeting.
What details?
What have you been on with our?
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
See you guys soon. Thank you.
Okay, he's a